The rain softly patted against the stained glass windows of the church as I sat in the back pew, wrapped in the scent of wet earth and damp roses. The atmosphere was thick with whispered condolences and the gentle rustling of tissues as though every breath taken was steeped in mourning. The heavy oak casket at the front held the body of my grandmother, the matriarch of our family, strong, vibrant, and eternally loving. A smile tugged at my lips when I pictured her warm hugs and the way her laughter could fill an entire room. This was supposed to be a time of reflection and love, but as I observed the scene unfold before me, an unsettling knot formed in my stomach. The service started with the preacher's soothing voice cutting through the air. He spoke about my grandmother's generosity, reminiscing about her passion for gardening and the endless cookies she baked for everyone in the neighborhood. She never wanted to keep anything for herself, he noted, his words painting her as a saintly figure, or at least the version I clung to all my life. But as my family took turns sharing their own heartfelt memories, the flickering flame of doubt began to flicker in my mind. My uncle stood up to recount the time Grandma helped him fix the roof of his home. As he spoke, a subtle yet jarring hint slipped from his lips. "I still don't know what I'm going to do with all that money from the estate," he said, his voice barely masking a tinge of excitement. My heart skipped a beat and the warmth of nostalgia was quickly replaced by a chilling realization. I leaned forward, heart racing, my palms clammy against the wooden pew. Did I just hear him right? Money from the estate? I had never been aware of any hidden fortune. Did he just bring up money? I whispered to the woman sitting next to me, my cousin, who was lost in her own world of grief. She barely acknowledged me, her eyes glazed over as they focused on the casket. I swallowed hard, forcing my attention back to the service, but the words echoed in my mind. My uncle had been the last person I expected to bring up finances at a funeral. Was it inappropriate or just careless? As more relatives stood, sharing what could only be described as rehearsed lines of affection, I felt a dull buzz in my ears. My mother rose and shared how my grandmother had always wanted the family to come together and cherish time spent with one another. She wore a bright floral dress that contrasted starkly with the somber mood of the room, and in that moment I couldn't help but feel a growing resentment bubble within me. Glancing around at faces that looked so familiar, I started to question everything. As the service crawled toward its conclusion, I caught sight of my uncle gesturing animatedly, his hands slicing through the air like he was explaining some grand scheme. "I could put it in stocks," he said, excitement lacing his voice, revealing a flash of greed. "And she always said we should take a trip to Europe. Think of the fun we could have." A wave of nausea churned in my stomach as I heard the words. The realization settled upon me like a heavy blanket. Grandma's estate, the prize they were discussing so callously, was my inheritance too. I felt invisible as I sat among them, watching this unspoken drama unfold. I couldn't handle it any longer. I needed to know. I needed to expose the truth, to unravel this dark web my family had woven without my knowledge. After the service wrapped up, I slipped away to the corner of the church where a small fountain of water bubbled softly, signifying a sacred space amidst the solemnity. I took a breath, letting the cool, refreshing air fill my lungs, but instead of clarity, my heart raced with confusion and betrayal. As family members mingled, exchanged hugs, and shared platitudes, I felt more and more like an outsider in a family I believed was picture perfect. Suddenly, I spotted my mother stepping away from a group of older relatives. She looked vulnerable, her typical bravado stripped away. I approached her cautiously. "Mom," I began, desperation creeping into my voice, "I need to talk to you about money." Her face paled slightly, and for a moment I thought I could see her defenses rise. "Not now, Amelia," she said, the sharpness in her tone slicing through the air like a knife. "This isn't the right time." "It is the right time," I insisted, my voice firmer than I felt. "What estate are they talking about? What money, and where has it gone?" Her eyes widened. She glanced around nervously as if she feared anyone could overhear us. "Let's not do this here." Her voice was nearly a whisper, but it shook with a mixture of fear and annoyance. "You don't know everything, and it would be best to keep it that way." I felt the walls closing in as dread coiled tighter around my heart. I couldn't stand it anymore. "But I do know," I said with a deadpan determination creeping into my words. "I heard Uncle hinting at a hidden fortune. What's been going on that we don't know about?" A flicker of anger crossed her features, and I braced myself for the storm. "You think you can just waltz in here and demand answers? Your grandmother's passing is not the moment for money talk." I recoiled at her sharpness, the last words cut deep. How had I been so blind? My mother was the type of person who would rather protect shameful secrets than face the truth. The family I once thought was warm and inviting now felt like a fortress built on deception. "What are you hiding from me, Mom? Am I not entitled to anything?" "Entitled?" she hissed, her voice barely contained. "You have no idea how hard I've worked to keep our family whole. You really think Grandma wanted us fighting over money?" Before I could respond, the crowd around us grew louder, laughter and conversation piercing through my stormy thoughts. My mother's expression slipped into a forced smile as she turned away, pretending I wasn't there and seamlessly flowing back into the circle of family. I stood frozen, caught in a whirlwind of rage and confusion. How was it possible that everything I loved had been veiled in this ugly, corrupt reality? "I need to know," I whispered to myself as I watched her embrace my uncle, sharing secrets I would never uncover. The betrayal was dizzying, and for the first time I felt a flicker of something else mixing with pain, a desire, a hunger for revenge. The image of my perfect family began to crumble like a sandcastle, washed away by the tide of greed and dishonesty. I could not just stand by while my mother and uncle lived lavishly from the very fortune that was meant to be mine. I would reclaim what was rightfully mine. With newfound determination simmering within me, I decided to act. I would dig deeper and find every ounce of truth shrouded in whispers and deceit. As I turned to leave the church, my heart thudded with purpose. A reckoning was coming, and I was hell-bent on uncovering their hidden sins. The laughter of my family faded into the background, replaced with a rising storm of resolve, a storm that would soon unleash its fury upon those who had wronged me. Confronting my mother felt like climbing a mountain, yet I had to expose the truth. The crisp autumn air hung thick with dread as I approached the family home, the place that had always felt like a sanctuary but now loomed over me like a harsh prison. My stomach twisted into knots, and with every hesitant step, I could feel my heart thudding in my chest, echoing the mounting urgency of my mission. I had to unveil the truth. My findings were more than mere suspicions. They were a reckoning, a fire that demanded to be ignited. As I crossed the threshold, the scent of baked goods wafted through the hallway, a pretense of warmth that felt like a facade I could no longer believe. The kitchen was filled with bright sunlight, but instead of feeling comforted, I could only think about how deep the shadows had grown in our family. My fingers twitched at my sides, brushing absently against the creased documents I tucked into the pocket of my sweater, the evidence I had painstakingly gathered over weeks of relentless digging. I rounded the corner to find her, my mother, standing at the kitchen counter, her back to me. She was meticulously arranging a platter of cookies, as if the delicate patterns in the icing could somehow mask the harsher truths I was about to unleash. "Mom," I said, my voice trembling like a fragile leaf in autumn's breeze. She turned slowly, her expression morphing into something unreadable, a chilling mask that only heightened my apprehension. "What is it, Amelia?" she asked, her voice dripping with an icy indifference. I had rehearsed this moment in my head 1,000 times, yet now the words jumbled together like a chaotic storm. I needed to focus, to slice through her indifference with raw honesty. "Can we talk?" The words felt clumsy, escaping my lips. Confusion flickered in her eyes, but it quickly morphed into annoyance as she waved a dismissive hand. "There is nothing to talk about," she replied, her tone sharper than the knife she had used to slice the cookies. "Really, Amelia. You need to stop making things up to get attention." A flash of anger surged through my veins. "I am not making things up. I found the documents, Mom, the bank statements, the hidden accounts." My voice rose, trembling not just with anger but with the pain of betrayal that lanced through my heart. I pulled the documents from my pocket, my hands shaking as I laid them out on the table between us. "What do you want me to say?" The way she tossed her hair over her shoulder like a curtain, as if closing off any intimacy, enraged me further. "You've always been dramatic. This is just another one of your attempts to fabricate drama." "Dramatic?" I couldn't contain the incredulity in my voice. "This isn't drama. This is our life. All those family gatherings, the smiles we wore like masks. I thought we were happy. I thought." My breath hitched, a lump forming in my throat. Little did she know those smiles were choked out of necessity. They were barricades against the unending fall of my disappointment. "I thought we were a family." "Families fight," she countered coolly, moving toward the fridge as if to distract herself with something as mundane as a jar of pickles. "And they settle their disputes without making outlandish accusations." I stepped closer, brazen and unyielding, needing her to see the gravity of this betrayal. "It's not just accusations." I went through our records. "You and Dad, you've been manipulating finances behind our backs." Each word was like a knife twisting deeper where trust had once flourished. "You spent money on ridiculous gifts for the extended family while I barely scraped by." She turned to face me, her gaze icy and hard like a glacier unyielding to the warmth of the sun. "You are twisting the narrative. We do what we need to do for this family, Amelia. Not everything is as simple as you think. The world is complicated, and just because you do not understand does not mean it is wrong." "Oh, I understand perfectly well," I shot back, rage fueling my voice. "You've ensured that I never belonged, all those times when I had to choose between necessities and luxuries you throw away carelessly. The extravagant vacations you splurged on while I worked endless hours. Do you have any idea how that made me feel, like I didn't matter?" In the brief silence that followed, her expression flickered with something I couldn't quite place, maybe guilt, or perhaps it was simply annoyance at being challenged. "We all have sacrifices to make, Amelia," she said, though her tone lacked conviction. "Sacrifices?" I felt a fiery determination bubbling beneath the surface that I had not known before. "No, Mom, this isn't sacrifice. This is something far worse. It is deceit. You've manipulated everyone's perception of our lives." I gestured toward the dining room where that pristine family portrait hung, our faces shining in eternal bliss. We were just a well-crafted image while behind the scenes our lives were crumbling. I watched as her eyes narrowed, her composure slipping for just a moment. "You don't know what it's like to keep a family together," she retorted, her voice gaining venomous strength. "You're too busy playing the martyr without seeing the bigger picture." Bigger picture. I had never seen her this angry, and an eerie calm fell over me. "What bigger picture? Why should I care about that when all I feel is left out? I am tired of wondering about bank transactions when all I want is to enjoy time with my family." With a sobering realization, I saw she was not listening. She had become impervious to my words, much like I felt toward her emotions. I had crossed a line, stepping onto her carefully constructed battlefield of perfect family appearances, and she was armed with every lie to defend herself. Sometimes a family keeps secrets because they are protecting one another, she shot back sharply, her expression resolute. You are wrong to question my intentions. Yet here I am, the one left with the shattered remnants of trust, I whispered, my voice trembling at the admission, but I clung to my anger for strength. You think that lying protects me? Instead, it suffocates me. I am drowning in the secrecy, these half-truths. Tension crackled between us, and for a moment the room felt suffocating, filled with the unsaid emotions that hung heavily in the air. I realized I was no longer just hurt, I was on the edge of being destroyed by those I once trusted most. My heart sank further as I felt a clarity wash over me. I could no longer play the role of the dutiful daughter, the obedient child. Mom, it's time for honesty, I said, my own voice surprising me with its steadiness. You can keep waving your hands, painting the lies like an artist trying to mask a rough canvas, but I see it now. All those years of hardship and feeling like a pariah have been leading me to this moment. I may just be one person, but I will not allow your secrets to drown me too. Fine, she said, the coldness in her voice piercing through me like daggers. If you feel that strongly, then perhaps you should leave. If you think you can expose secrets and shake family bonds, maybe you do not belong here anyway. Her words struck like a bullet, hitting harder than I ever anticipated. And that's the answer, isn't it? I breathed, clenching my fists to stave off tears that threatened to break free. You want me gone so you can keep living behind your lies. As silence enveloped the kitchen, time seemed to halt. A clock ticked somewhere in the distance, each second echoing painfully loud. The depth of her betrayal rippled through me like a wave crashing against solid rock, eroding my certainty away. You've lost me, I whispered, confusion and rage swirling through me like a tempest. Goodbye, Amelia, she replied coldly, turning her back on me once more, her ice-cold indifference cutting deeper than I thought possible. I stood there, feeling as though the world had shattered around me. Something fractured deep within, congested with a mixture of anger and sorrow, leaving only the raw ache of abandonment in its wake. My heart felt moldy and worn like an old photograph hidden away, the colors fading into nothingness, the joyful memories lost to time. I looked at the documents scattered across the table, a testament to the truth and the myriad of realities piling around my feet. I took a shaky breath, fighting against the sorrow bubbling up inside me. You'll regret this, I muttered under my breath, sparking a flicker of determination deep within my chest. I would not be silenced or erased. The walls of my heart were crumbling, but they would also rise back stronger, fortified against the betrayal that had been poured into my soul. This was no longer just a quest for understanding. It was the pathway to reclaiming my narrative for the better. With one last look at my mother, a mere silhouette against the kitchen counter, I turned and walked away, the door creaking open to reveal a world beyond her grasp. A world where my truth, my life, would once again begin to emerge from the shadows that cloaked our family. I stepped outside, breathing in the crisp air, the weight of betrayal still heavy on my chest but mixed now with an unyielding resolve to bring forth justice. My courage igniting the flame of revenge within me, the pale glow of the moon spilled through the thin curtains of my bedroom, casting ghostly shadows across the cluttered surface of my desk. It painted everything in a soothing hue, but inside I was anything but calm. The walls felt as though they were closing in on me, each tick of the clock driving deeper into the silence. I could hear a low rumble of my father's voice from the living room, attempting to dissipate the tension that had coiled around our family like a serpent. But even from the distance, I could detect an edge of despair muddled with forced laughter and empty conversation. I thought you'd like this one, Dad. I could imagine my mother saying, her voice sugary sweet, but behind it there was a blade, a hidden agenda disguised in tender words. Every family gathering had turned into a masquerade ball, the jokes traded over dinner bumping against familiar horrors beneath the surface. Their laughter felt like daggers to me, each note slicing deeper into the betrayal that burned in my chest. It has been weeks since everything unraveled, weeks since my father found those incriminating documents stuffed in the back of my mother's closet. The bills, piled high like morning fog over Maplewood, carried whispers of her double life, luxuries that glittered like shattered glass, reflecting nothing but deceit. He was confronting the unbearable weight of our impending financial ruin, and in that moment, so was I. The sight of his face as he pieced the truth together will haunt me forever. His skin had gone pale, the warmth in his eyes dimmed as if every spark of hope extinguished under the enormity of betrayal. Now, in the dim light of my sanctuary, I could feel the pressure inside me build like a kettle about to boil. What had she done? How could my mother, the woman who raised me in love and laughter, or so I thought, be capable of such manipulation? Memories flooded my mind, glimpses of her extravagant shopping sprees, the glint of new jewelry resting on her neck, her indifference to the growing mountains of bills piling up at home. I clenched my fists under my chin, realizations slamming against my consciousness. I cannot let this go unpunished, I whispered to the darkness, letting the words hang heavy in the quiet. I leaned back against my chair, its rough wood scraping slightly against my skin. Eyes closed, I dredged up those memories to feed the fire that had started to flicker to life within me. The laughter at family gatherings had become an unbearable reminder of what we had lost. A simple question from my father had launched yet another family gathering into another awkward silence. So, where did you get that purse, Amelia? He had asked, pointing at the exquisite accessory dangling delicately from my mother's wrist, which she had flaunted so casually within earshot of our family. "Oh, I just stumbled upon it at the mall," she replied instantly, her smile as glimmering and practiced as that handbag, leaving no room for doubt. I could sense my father's confusion shimmering just below the surface, and in that moment I wanted to scream at her to tear asunder the blissful facade she nurtured. With the moonlight illuminating my clutter, my heart began to race. If my mother could manage to create a life built on lies, then surely I could infiltrate that world too, using her playbook against her. From my desk, I pulled out my old journal. The dark blue leather cover was weathered, the pages filled with thoughts I had never shared. I scribbled fierce notes, mapping out ideas for my plan. I had to gather evidence, I had to expose her webs of deceit. "Amelia," my father called softly from the hallway, that awkward blend of concern and confusion leaking through his voice. I could sense him lingering there, uncertain of whether to enter the room or maintain the wispy, fragile distance. I quickly closed the journal, the sound of the leather snapping into place echoed in the silence around me. The door handle turned slowly and he stepped inside. "Are you okay?" he asked, backlit by the hallway lights. His image was stark against the brightness, shadows cloaking him in a sense of vulnerability. I wanted to envelop him in a hug, erase the anxiety that rippled through him like a sickening tide. "I'm fine, Dad," I lied, though the words felt heavy on my tongue, just thinking. His eyes narrowed, searching mine for something I knew I couldn't easily offer, a glint of reassurance. "About your mother?" "Yeah," I replied, fighting down the wave of resentment that threatened to surge. "Things have been different lately. Friend Amelia, she's—" His voice trailed off and he turned his back to me, gazing out into the abyss of our small town, visible through the thin drapes. "How did I not see? I should have protected you, protected us." I stepped forward, alighting on the resolve beneath my pain. "No, Dad, it's not your fault. You're already dealing with so much." He turned to face me, the light revealing cracks in his stoic demeanor. "But she, Dad," I interrupted, my voice sharpening. "She has to pay for what she's done. We can't let this go on." He swallowed hard, the emotional burden weighing down his shoulders. "What are you saying, Amelia?" "I'm saying I will find out everything I can," I declared, letting hope seep through the cracks of despair. "I want to make sure that there are consequences for her actions. She needs to understand what her choices have cost us." "What if it backfires?" he urged, concern etching lines into his forehead. "What if it does?" I shot back, the ember of determination roaring to life. "What if I find the proof we need? I can begin to fight back and reclaim what is ours." His shoulders relaxed, but the worry intertwined with fear shimmered in his eyes. "Promise me you will be careful." "I promise," I said, meaning every syllable. In that moment, the smoldering rage inside me, a blend of pain and a hunger for justice, sparked to life with vivid possibilities. I turned away from him, hefting the journal onto my lap again, filling the silence with scribbled plans, each word infused with a fierce longing to reclaim our world. The ticking clock steadied my resolve, marking each second as I began to imagine the intricate threads of deception I would soon unravel. My mother had built a penthouse of falsehoods, and it was time to tear it down brick by brick. No more pretending, no more family gatherings filled with miserable laughter. This was a war, and I would be its soldier. The first step, I knew, was to infiltrate her world. Just like she had done with our family, I would work my way past the doors she had closed and unveil her treachery in the daylight. I needed to find more than just evidence. I needed to enter her realm, far enough to understand all the choices she made, everything she thought she could hide. Suddenly, my phone buzzed against the wooden surface. I reached for it, noticing the notification was from a group chat with my closest friends. Even through the suffocating pain, I let myself be swept up by their jokes for only a moment. Laughter glimmered in my weary mind like a distant star, but quickly my focus sharpened. I typed a response, half listening to their chatter while focusing my thoughts on the task at hand. I would not let them bring me back down into despair. Words slipped onto the screen like a blend of resolve and warmth. "Hey, guys. Let's hang out tomorrow. I could really use a distraction." Pain dulled by distractions would keep me afloat for now. I needed to prepare to strategize, to lay bare the life of the woman I thought I knew while rolling the dice on this cat and mouse game she had so carelessly orchestrated. "All right, Amelia," I murmured to myself as I squinted at the hopeless clutter of the desk. "Let the games begin." The fire of revenge burned bright within me now, an unquenchable thirst for justice that would not subside until things were put right. The dim light glowed with determination as I ripped open the page of my journal and let the ink flow like blood, an incantation for the war ahead, a blueprint of betrayal laid bare. The weight of revenge felt like freedom as I vowed silently into the dark night that I would take back control, not just for myself, but for my father too. I could feel the anticipation swirling around me like the humid air before a thunderstorm, thick and electrifying. Each tick of the clock seemed to resonate louder as the day drew closer, the day I would confront my family with the truth that had been buried beneath layers of deceit and greed. I could almost taste the bitterness of their betrayal on my tongue, a sharp reminder of how they had robbed me of my future and dignity while indulging in their reckless lives. As I settled into my chair, the scent of polished wood mixed with the faint aroma of aged paper, reminders of the bank where I had unearthed their dark secrets, the adrenaline coursed through my veins like wildfire. I had never expected to become an agent of confrontation. Growing up, I had been the quiet child, the one who took the backseat, observing the chaos that often wove itself into the fabric of our family. The entitlement in my mother's laugh, the dismissive wave of my uncle's hand, each had always felt like a tiny dagger, but I had been too fearful and too meek to speak up. But now, standing on the precipice of revenge, I had found my voice, and it was powerful. On the morning of the confrontation, I donned my black dress, a carefully chosen outfit that whispered power rather than demanded attention. The fabric clung to me in all the right ways, a stark contrast to the chaos swirling in my mind. I ran my fingers through my straightened hair, a sense of calm accompanying each stroke. Today I would unveil the carefully manicured facade they had hidden behind for far too long, and I couldn't help a small, grim smile as I pictured the look on their faces. Late in the afternoon, as the sun began to droop on the horizon, casting golden lights through the tall windows of the bank, I waited in a small, bare conference room. The air was thick with potential, charged like a spring morning before the rain. I had arranged for my lawyer to be present, a detail that added an extra layer of gravitas to the moment. I wanted them to feel the weight of their wrongdoings coming down upon them, and I had taken the necessary steps to ensure they realized the depth of my power. When I heard the shuffle of footsteps approaching, my heart thundered like a drum echoing through an empty hall. My mother entered first, her heels clicking against the polished flooring, a sound so sharp and intrusive in the quiet room. I had always found that sound to be grating, her self-important march to the world, blind to the havoc she wreaked. "Amelia," she greeted me, the sweet intonation in her voice dripping with false warmth. It was a tired act I had grown too weary to accept. It felt as if she were a stranger rather than the woman who bore me. "Mother," I replied coolly, my eyes narrowing slightly as I allowed the tension to seep into the atmosphere. Next, my uncle followed her, a smug look plastered on his face like he had just figured out the answer to a game only he was playing. There was an arrogance about him that infuriated me more than anything else. "So, what's all this about?" he asked, feigning disinterest. "You called us here like it's some sort of family meeting, but we have better things to do, don't we?" "Believe me, this is far from a regular family meeting," I said, my voice steady. I gestured to the empty chairs opposite me, a gesture that felt more satisfying than I could have ever predicted. "Sit down, both of you." When they finally settled into the chairs, their expressions oscillated between amusement and confusion. Did they genuinely think I would let them off the hook so easily? I could almost hear the gears turning in their heads, their minds racing to connect the dots of the vague threat that loomed over them. "Let's cut to the chase," I said, the cadence of my voice growing sharp as I laid the documents before them. "You two have spent years scheming to rob me and the rest of our family blind. I have proof." My mother's smile faltered for a fraction of a second, a flicker of vulnerability that quickly morphed back into indifference. "Proof of what, dear?" "You always did have a talent for exaggeration," she drawled, rolling her eyes in a manner that told me she expected to wipe away my accusations with a mere flick of her wrist. I leaned forward, emphasizing every word. "You think I don't know about the accounts you funneled money into? The cash withdrawals that coincided with your little gambling jaunts? I know you and Uncle have been draining our family estate for years." I held up the dossier, thick with pages of evidence, and felt the weight of it settle on the table like a rain cloud ready to burst. The documents whispered truth, financial transactions, recorded conversations, and each red flag raised a chorus of accountability that would drown their denials. My uncle leaned back, crossing his arms in a defensive manner, his bravado dissolving under the weight of my assertion. "Do you really think a few papers scare us? You've got nothing." His dismissal mirrored the desperation in his voice, and yet I saw the flicker of worry hidden in his eyes. I smiled, the kind of smile that held secrets better than any locked box. "Oh, I have plenty, enough to bring both of you down. I filed a civil suit against the bank, and they are reassessing our family estate. They found so much misconduct that they are ready to settle this for $200,000, I stated, letting the words hang in the air. Their faces twisted painfully, a reflection of disbelief mixed with shock. I almost reveled in it, the way my mother's jaw dropped and my uncle's eyes widened as I delved deeper into the details of the settlement. "Imagine how embarrassing it will be for you to have this all blow up publicly. All those friends of yours, they'll know what you really are. You'll be the family disgrace, and it will all be because of the choices you made." My mother's voice broke slightly, a rare crack of vulnerability shining through. "You wouldn't," she said, her tone laced with desperation. I could see the gears shifting in her mind, the sick panicking thought that perhaps I was serious. "We're family, Amelia, we're supposed to look out for one another." "Family?" I scoffed. "Family does not betray one another for personal gain. You've shown me who you are, and now I will show you the consequences." I turned my gaze to my uncle, watching as his bravado crumbled away, a mask slipping off to reveal the frightened man underneath. "You think somehow the court will side with you? We can fight this, you know." He tried to regain some semblance of control, but his voice wavered. "You could fight, but the evidence is overwhelming." I gestured to the thick stack of pages I had compiled. "And I am not going to let either of you go with a simple slap on the wrist. You deserve every bit of this." They exchanged glances, realizing the severity of their situation. The anger rising within my mother flared like sparks flying from a flame, evident in the way her hands clenched into tight fists. "I raised you, Amelia. You will not ruin our family's good name." Her voice reached a shrill pitch I had often associated with her overreactions, but I felt no fear, only clarity. "You've already tarnished our name with your actions," I retorted, each word dripping with the satisfaction I had bottled up for too long. "And besides, what's good about a name built on greed and betrayal?" A moment of silence hung in the air, thick with tension. I watched as reality filtered into their minds, their disappointment in my defiance morphing into something bitter, poisonous almost. I leaned back in my chair, reveling in the changing tides. My mother's voice came out in a whisper laden with desperation. "Please, Amelia, we can work something out." I shook my head slowly, almost pityingly. "There is nothing to work out. You have made your choices, and now I will make mine. You will learn the hard way what happens when you underestimate someone." I watched her face twist with anger. A mixture of shame and rage turned into a frown that revealed her true nature. And it was then, at that moment, that I knew without a hint of doubt that revenge had become a dish perfectly prepared and served cold. I reveled in the thrill of it all, knowing that my plan was finally unfolding, as satisfying as a final bow after a glorious performance. I felt powerful, I felt what it meant to hold the reins. As I gathered the documents, the silence enveloped us like a shroud, a warning that something had fundamentally shifted in our dynamic. Their disbelief hung thick, but my resolve bloomed like a spring flower, bright and eager to meet the light. "Consider this the beginning of my new chapter," I said as I rose from my chair, summoning all the strength I had to move confidently to the door where the weight of undeniable victory sat upon my shoulders. I would walk through this storm and emerge unscathed, leaving them to the tempest of their own making. For today I had won. The storm was brewing, and the aftermath would rain down upon them like the judgment they deserved. The weight of years pressed heavy on my chest. But today, as I stood in the middle of my family's living room, I felt an exhilarating lightness burst forth, like the dawn breaking through an oppressive night. The settlement was done. The chains that had bound me, those invisible shackles of obligation and expectation, had fallen away. My heart echoed with a new rhythm as I watched the unfolding drama from the sidelines, a strange satisfaction curling at my lips. "How could you let this happen? You claimed to protect the family," my aunt said sharply, her voice dripping with disdain as she glared at my mother, who had been her co-conspirator for far too many years. The questioning was fierce, unapologetic. Each word struck like a hammer against the fragile facade my family had built for decades. My mother's face reflected a chaos of emotions, her previously poised demeanor unraveling. "You don't understand the complexities involved," she stammered, trying to regain control. The confidence I had once believed to be unshakable was slipping through her fingers like grains of sand. I stood back, observing the confrontation with a mixture of triumph and sympathy. The way my mother's eyes darted around the room, searching for support, told me everything I needed to know. Complexities. I thought, rolling my eyes. It amazed me how easily she twisted the narrative even in the face of undeniable evidence. My father, standing beside me, looked weary yet resolute. "My decision was to do what was right for her, for us," he said, strong and unwavering. His voice was steady, a steady heartbeat amid the chaos. "We've been trapped by the expectations of others for far too long." I could feel his disappointment radiate like heat from a fire, but I also felt a flicker of pride. He had finally taken a stand, one I had longed for him to take. "You may think this is just about money," my mother continued, her voice rising as she faced our relatives, "but it's about loyalty, family, duty. You must understand." Loyalty, duty, the words barely resonated with me anymore, teetering too close to irony. I had spent years trying to hold on to those values in a family that had quietly derailed any sense of solidarity. All I ever wanted was to break away from the chains placed on my spirit and to forge a future that was mine alone. The settlement mark was not merely a financial win, it was my ticket to freedom. "You always been able to manipulate everyone to your advantage, haven't you?" A cousin shot back, her voice steely. The tension in the air could be cut with a knife. The sense of betrayal washed over me in waves as I watched my mother squirm under the pressure of uncomfortable truths. "Amelia risks it all to break free, and she gestured wildly, "you were supposed to be my support. I made sacrifices for you." The truth hit like a thunderclap. Her so-called sacrifices darkened the memories of my childhood, suffocating my dreams and ensuring that I would live with the shadows of her ambitions looming over me. It had been my mother who convinced me that success was the only way to gain her affection, but now the truth had shattered that once invincible facade. "I'm starting over, Mother," I said, my voice calmer than I felt inside, which thrummed with a victorious energy that demanded release. "There is no going back. My life cannot be defined by your failures." Her face shifted, fury liquefied into despair. "You will regret this," a hollow warning. I had spent years expecting her to spiral into rage, defiant and unyielding. I had finally taken action, and the tumult was hers to navigate, not mine. "It's not a threat, it's liberation," I countered, hoping to deliver the final blow to the crumbling citadel of our family. I wanted to shout, to laugh. I felt a freedom wrapping around me, buoying me higher. "I did what I thought was best," she hissed, her voice choked with bitterness. The air was thick with conflict, but now it felt different. It felt clean. One of my uncles cleared his throat loudly, a sound that reverberated in the tense silence. "Now is not the time for blame," he interjected, seeking to diffuse the escalating tension. "We should be discussing the future, not dwelling on the past." I knew what he was trying to do, but his words felt hollow. I wasn't interested in the past. The future was an uncharted territory I was eager to embrace. "What future?" I asked with a certainty that shocked even me. "I have no plans to carry these burdens any longer. I choose a different path." My father's hand rested gently on my shoulder, a physical connection that softened the storm within me. "Together we will redefine what family means," he said, looking forward with a newfound determination. Confidence surged within me like an electric current. My mother now looked smaller. I wondered if she understood the implications of losing her grip on me. Perhaps in her heart she felt it too. I would never return to be her puppet. This was the moment I seized my identity, wrenched it from her grasp. The living room was a whirlwind of tension as relatives exchanged awkward glances. The familiar walls seemed to morph, transforming from a cage into a sanctuary that I could enter unburdened. I glanced around the room, my heart swelling. People who once turned their backs on me were gauging the fallout. They were not used to this confrontation. Amelia, my father said gently, pulling me aside, are you truly ready to leave all of this behind? I nodded, a serene wave washing over me. It has to be done, I replied, feeling my own resolve solidifying like steel. I cannot keep living as a puppet for their show. Then let us break out of this cycle, he whispered, his eyes shining with the gleam of hope. It felt like a pact between us, a promise to navigate life by our own design. As we moved toward the door, I couldn't help but smile. The settlement was more than financial. It signified a severing of toxic ties that had bound me for too long. Standing in front of the threshold, my heart trembled not with fear but anticipation as I pushed the wooden door open. Outside, the sun was shining brighter than I had remembered, each ray casting away shadows that once felt oppressive. I inhaled deeply, filling my lungs with clarity and newness. It was time to embrace this newfound independence, a future that shimmered with possibilities, a future that was unequivocally mine. I'll never let them control me again, I murmured, gazing up at the wide-open sky. My father held his head high, a proud echo of the person I desired to become. We stepped out into the vibrant world outside, leaving behind the remnants of a life riddled with chains. Today marked a beginning, a chance to redefine everything. With each step into the sunlight, I felt as if I was striding into an exhilarating dream, a dream built not on the whims of others, but on the foundation of my own desires. And in that moment, I knew their vengeance had birthed a stronger version of me, a woman ready to seize the reins of her life and follow the horizon wherever it might lead.